On flood control, and you can even talk to the Flood Control Center. When you're talking in Iowa, you're talking farm ponds, wetlands, and soil quality. So soil quality, the idea would be you improve the quality so more water infiltrates, less runs off. Very similar to what we want in good soil quality. We want to keep that soil. Ponds are not something we're going to put in Carroll County much. Land's too expensive. If we're going to flood out 5 acres into a permanent pond at $10,000 an acre and you're already starting at a $50,000 price tag, probably not something that's going to go over very well. Same with wetlands. So if we're looking in Carroll County, we're probably looking at good soil quality practices. Now, as you move to some of the other counties that have steeper topography, more of it's in like pasture land, and you can build a pond there, and then you can improve on watering systems. That makes sense. But that's the important part of having a watershed, is you can look around the watershed and say, these are the practices that I have in my toolbox, and these are the most likely places to put those practices. Good, solid soil and water conservation planning.
Very good, thank you. So in layman's terms, out of the 200-page plan, it's unlikely that there would be any negative flooding impact to the people of Carroll County.
I don't know what that, I mean, it would be a voluntary basis where I put in my ponds. Ponds are meant to have a pipe, you have the water level at a specific elevation. When it rains a lot, the water builds up and it's released slowly through the pipe. Right. So on a very local basis, if I have a pond and my pond's functioning correctly, I'm going to flood some of my land. But that's the choice that I make as a landowner. They are voluntary programs.
Right, right. That's where, Ernie, you and I were speaking a little bit Friday when Neil was here. That's the only problem I've got with the eminent domain and limited to, I would still like to be able to have landowners have the right, the privilege to exchange land or to offer land.
And I understand that, and I really backed off on the land acquisition thing. It's just a matter of, you know, I understand why you would want to not limit it to any other way. The only concern is when you take land into the authority, it comes off the tax rolls and becomes a maintenance cost. So you just switched your cost base.
Thank you for pointing that out. I'm not quite sure we knew that, but thank you. I'm teasing you a little bit. Go ahead, Hubert. Thank you.
A close and quick example of what Tom was talking about releasing. You got 2 holding basins up there by the middle school where what Tom was talking about, that when the water really comes down, it builds up and is let out slower. And so you have some of that already without all of this extra stuff. Right. See, that's what I'm saying, is it's being done where it's necessary, and why do we want to have this when we're already getting it done without it?
Very good. Virginia?
I've got some concerns. They say this money is there, but can it be pulled? I believe Des Moines and Cedar Rapids had money pulled on them just recently. Sure. And with the deficit in Washington and in the trillions, are we sure that it isn't going to be pulled?
Wish I had that crystal ball, Virginia.
And we already have unkept promises. I was over in Fremont and Mills County, and they're still waiting on promises from the government and from grants. And now we have this disaster on the East Coast, and to start with, $30 billion. So someplace that money has got to come. And then I get kind of upset when I hear on the radio and read in the paper that the waterworks puts the nitrates back in the water after they've taken it out.
They've not done that for 5 years. They have new technology.
Well, they haven't told us about that. If the public still believes it's being put back in.
You're right, because that keeps getting perpetuated.
And now that DNR and EPA are having conflicts on philosophy, where is this 28E agreement going to stand? Are you going to go with DNR, who want to help people do the right thing? Or do you want to go with EPA, who's going to sock it to them and maybe put them out of business? Or can you make that choice but the 2080 agreement says, no, we're gonna go with the other group.
I, for one, it's my opinion that the 2080 doesn't necessarily provide for either one of those, so.
Well, you're gonna have to take a stand if you've got this grant and you've got this problem and you've
Right.
got this facility that you're working on.
Yeah, I simply don't have the answer to that question. And again, I'm not sitting here as a proponent for the 2080. I'm not 100% sold on it either. So, but I don't think the 2080 provides for either one of those opportunities as it stands.
That's also why the 28, why the termination clause is so highly looked
Yeah,
at.
but from what I'm hearing, you don't quite know what happens after the termination as to the obligations you made before.
Why get into it so you have to worry about terminations? Why don't you just stay out of it in the first place?
Only because of the opportunities it may provide. That's
May.
the only reason.
May.
Yeah. Anybody else? We've been just a little over an hour, not like we have a time limit, but I think we're kind of going around in circles a little bit. Go ahead, Neil.
Since I got the responsibility of being on this committee, I just want to give some of my own closing comments. And first of all, I want to thank a lot of people. I know, Ernie, you've had lots of comments. You've been to this board meeting before. You've emailed us. We looked at every comment you sent in. We seriously looked at and considered and adopted a lot of them. Mike has been in this room. You've had some ideas we looked at. Hubert and Virginia, you've stopped me several times. And the city council, Randy Carroll, had some suggestions. Our county attorney has looked over the legality of it. Other city council members, Carolyn in particular, sent a lot of ideas. And Pat, you worked on it a lot. And Tom, of course, you've got a lot of hours in on this, in this board here. When I came to the meetings, I always had lots of comments and ideas and questions, and Pat will verify that, because I had a lot of people helping me. So thank you. That's what our purpose is on this public hearings. Hear the comments. And this 2080 is going to happen whether Carroll County jumps on board or not. I'm convinced of that. It just takes like 3 people to do it. Being at the table, I think, is advantageous to Carroll County residents, just because we'll be there to make the decisions instead of somebody else making the decisions on their behalf. I feel that I'm very confident that money will be available by entities such as the Iowa Flood Center and other ones that they have entered here. And I want our Carroll County farmers to have opportunity for that on a voluntary basis, just as every other counties are. There is an exit policy, and we've discussed it. It's not perfect, but there is an exit policy. There could be some baggage attached, but you can get out of this agreement if things go south. And it's kind of like this prescription thing I'm talking. If the side effects end up being worse than the benefits, you quit taking the medicine. Well, this you can get out of the agreement as well. And then, Mike, I know there was a couple questions about guarantees. You wanted to guarantee that if you do this, can you guarantee that we're going to get all these practices done? No, I really can't guarantee what will happen, but I will tell you that it provides an opportunity to get them done, and we won't have that opportunity, or at least our possibilities of getting these opportunities are going to be much, much smaller if we don't participate. And then the other side, I think Ernie and Hubert are concerned that this is going to grow and explode into something else. Can I guarantee that won't happen? No, I can't guarantee that won't happen. But I look back on the parallel on what has happened the last 20 or 30 years in the Soap Creek and Sesquich Creek, where they've been doing this for 20 years, and all they've been doing is what we want to do, accomplish conservation work with grant type money. So things can go wrong, and they may go wrong. I don't think they will. So weighing out the pros and cons, there are some of each, absolutely. Everybody's made some valid points here. And a lot of the good and bad things are based on our own opinions, conjecture, and probabilities. That's absolutely true. But so I want to hear any more comments, and I really don't want this board to make a decision today. And the reason I don't is because I think this forum in its own is going to attract a lot of public attention, and I think we'll hear a lot of public comments in the next week or so, and so I would like to delay the decision for a week anyhow. I hope the board agrees. I think the board agrees. But, so this can continue for another 6 days. And then we'll decide. Maybe something we missed here in this room yet.
I would like to make one comment, and it relates to
Go ahead.
what you said and to what Pat said. We've made a lot of comments in the process, and I will say that many of those were accepted.
Absolutely.
And dramatically improved the 2080 from where it was.
And thank you for
And I
those
appreciate
suggestions.
that. I mean, it really did make a huge difference. And some of the comments that we're making now were made before, and we're reiterating them because we still have concerns with them. And I know that you're gonna decide as a group what's the right thing or what have you. But I do appreciate the dramatic improvement that's been made as a result of our participation.
Very good. Gentlemen?
You're wanting to wait a week when you decide on that?
I would. That would be my
I would
proposal.
concur.
Yes, you see that?
I would like to wait a week, and I just have just a couple of small comments to make here, and one was in regards to what Hubert had referred to about, you know, you're doing this with Crawford County already, you're cooperating with, the reason a lot of that cooperation would be those 28 agreements are in place already. And we just discussed a minor thing this morning with, we have a 28 agreement with Crawford County on sewers, on our sanitarium. And there's things being resolved because of that 2080 agreement. I am sitting on the fence on this going forward. I'll go home tonight and I'll go over these 2 pages of notes that I took down here from all the comments made by everybody, and I'll probably come to the only conclusion I'll get out. The fence just got higher. I mean, it's just, there was a lot of positive. I want to thank everybody also for coming in today. A lot of positive comments made. And it's not going to make my decision any easier on which way I'm going to vote on this.
Well, I think, you know, I'm to the point where I'm ready to make a decision. I don't want to see this drug out any longer. Because this has been on and rightfully done to this point. But I think we went this to the extent that we need to. And I will make a motion that we go ahead and adopt it, 2080 degree.
Very well. We have a motion to go ahead and adopt the 28E. Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion fails for lack of a second.
And at this point, Gene, I'll comment, I am in favor of it, but I really want to hear another
And
more
I
public
did this
comments.
for
I hope you
purpose.
understand that.
But but I do want us to make a decision next week.
Yeah,
I concur with that.
I guess one comment I would make, and I'm not opposed to waiting one more week. I mean, we've hammered all these things out over the course of time, and Ernie's made some good points, Pat's made some good points, and I think if we think about this for a week, I don't know, as far as Ernie's comments about the 4 items that he talked about with limited to determination and transfers of assets, I mean, is that something we want to go along, or maybe amend a little bit, or do we want to move forward from here?
But won't a lot of that be done in the,
Some of that, this is what Gene's trying to say, some of that could be tweaked with the rules writing.
Yeah.
Either to our advantage or disadvantage, no guarantees there, but I think it'd be to our advantage.
yeah, not rules ain't the word terminology.
Bylaws, yeah, that's
Thank you,
true.
Gene.
That's
Took 2 of
true.
us to get her, but we got it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, because that's one discussion, one of the first meetings that we talked about, and when I was there, is we talked about amending the
And you
bylaws.
can't do those until you get this part done.
Right,
And,
yeah.
and it is set up that the cooperating agencies need to approve the bylaws.
Mhm.
very well. Anything else? I, for one, want to, and I think on behalf of the board, want to thank everyone for their attendance and their input, their suggestions. I think we all not only thank you, but we also respect all of your opinions and value them a great deal as we move forward on this, hopefully as early as next week. Finally, you know, my only personal comment would be in closing is I have a thorough disdain for political wafflers, and I will admit I have become one. At the very get-go of this back in July, I didn't, or in August, that I thought that it was just going to turn into another fiscal responsibility like a nonprofit, and that I didn't feel as though we needed to budget for. And then we had a presentation by the folks at the Des Moines Water Works that said absolutely not. There's no financial responsibility here. And I started feeling a little bit better about it. And then along came the draft of the first 28E that had obvious and severe flaws in it. So then I got back off of the fence, and then over the course of the last several weeks, I've been on and I've been off and I've been on and I've been off. The major concern, I see that there is considerable benefits for the people of Carroll County, and I think there is some risk as well. And they are entrusting us as their elected officials to make the best decision on their behalf. That decision, I believe, will come next week, unless there's some startling revelation or epiphany by any of us. And so I think we will move forward on this as early as next week. I still have grave concerns about the termination agreement, or the termination rights, even going into how the bylaws are written. I believe as it stands, I think that Carroll County could be on the hook, even though we would choose to opt out or to terminate the agreement, and then there's 30 days for action to be taken at a majority vote. And we might not be able to impact that at all. So that's where, as far as the 28E concerns me. So with that, if there are no further comments, I will go ahead and close the public hearing at about 11:17, Joan. And once again, thank you all. Thank you for the media's attendance also. I greatly appreciate it, all three of you.